Hi folks, and welcome back to part 5 of the Black Powder Big Battles. And set out in front of you is the first of a series of 3 battles that have been brought about by the campaign map movements. And this one is the French, this side, under duress against Vincent's Austrian division along here. So we're going to take a bit of a closer look at the French. See if we can swing around and have a closer look. The blue dots for the French denote which brigade they are. So swing along here and we'll find the 1st Brigade. This one is under Berganas, and he has a units made up of 2 battalions of light, 2 more further battalions of light, all standard size, and 1 battalion of line. He's going to be pressing forward through the woods using these light infantry, and to take out the brigade that's in front of him. We'll take a closer look at the Austrians in a minute. We move across the battlefield and we will locate the 2nd Brigade. This is under Franges, and he has 2 battalions of line, 2 further battalions of line, and a single battalion of line, all made up of standard sizes or 2 bases. Move across to the 4th Brigade. This is the centre, and we have 4 units of line. There's 2 battalions of line, a further 2 battalions of line, and 2 units of line, but they're single battalions. So quite a strong brigade in the centre. And we move across to the last part, and this is the cavalry brigade, which is made up of the 1st and 4th Chasseurs. If we take a closer look now at the Austrian forces on the table, swing up the table, and we'll come to the 1st of the Austrians. This is made up of 2 standard battalions and 1 large battalion, and this is the brigade is under Roselle. They've also got a artillery battery to give them some support as well. If we move across to the 2nd, this is a large brigade under Levotz, and he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 standard battalions of Austrian infantry, and inside the village you can see some Landwehr. We move across to the 3rd Brigade. This one is under Timmerman, and he has 2 standard infantry battalions, 1 large infantry battalion, the ones at the front of the 3 bases, and at the back you can see the standard battalion of the Landwehr, and off to the right attached to them is the 2 of the Austrian Hussars. So that's the setup of the battle so far, and I've added all the done all the dices and just set up the strategies, and both have turned up, and they have both got chances of 50% casualties. So it's going to be a hard fought battle, this one. The French slightly outnumber the Austrians, but the Austrians have a pretty good position there with come down lower. You can probably just make out the ridge line along the front here that the French have got to get up first. They've guarded that well, the Austrians, with some batteries of artillery. They've got to pound the French as they come up through that central position. So, as I say, both have set at 50% casualties that they can carry on until they reach that point. Objectives for the French are obviously to break through the Austrian defence and take the village. That's the French objective. The Austrians' objective is basically to stop them I'm going to give this a 12 game turns, just to give it plenty of time to fight, because obviously these are 6mm and they move quite slowly because of the ground scale. Obviously he's in centimetres, so that's 12, I think, centimetres for movement. So that's quite slow rate of movement, but it works well. So I'm not going to give a blow-by-blow account, but I am going to drop in backwards and forwards during the action to give you a better report, a bit more of a sort of show of what's going down on the battlefield. So I've got the pot of doom, I've called it. Obviously, as you remember from the first battle that I showed, that's where all the counters go in for me to count up at the end of the battle. That happens if a battalion is forced to withdraw, or they take they go up to damaged, or they're forced to withdraw completely off the battlefield. So yeah, I'll get into the action and roll some dice and see what happens. I'll pop back in a bit. Folks, just popping back at the end of turn 2. There's a general advance for the French. The Central Brigade, 3rd Brigade, have taken some hits from the Austrian artillery. The 1st Brigade are picking their way through the woods, hoping to engage the Austrians soon. French cavalry is moving up to reserve. The 2nd Brigade are moving up, intention of engaging the Austrians along that quarter. The Austrians themselves, other than firing their artillery, haven't done anything at all, but they're going to be moving soon because the French are starting to draw quite clear to them as well. So yeah, I'm going to pop back in at the end of another couple of turns, hopefully, see what's the action's happening. See you in a bit. Now we're back at the end of turn 3. All going well on this flank. The French are still advancing. The Austrians are now moving around, trying to get themselves into a better firing position. The artillery have been blasting away, but everyone was missed. The Austrians here are starting to move up as well. The French lights are still picking their way through the woods. A bit of a disaster in the centre though. Rolled the dice for orders and failed, so I moved the corps commander up, and he failed as well. So there you go. That brought the turn to an abrupt end, and unfortunately the centre column is just sitting lavishing in the middle of the field. Lucky for them though, the Austrian artillery weren't up to spec and didn't blast them to pieces. So yeah, I'll come back again in another round or so to see how we're doing. Back in the end of turn 4, and 2nd French Brigade has moved up fast. It's about to engage the Austrians. The Austrians took a hit from the French artillery. The French front columns finally moving themselves forwards, but took an absolute pounding this round from the artillery. The Austrian artillery took a hit from counter battery from the French, and on this side the two of the battalions of the French light pulled off a masterful stroke. 2 orders, moved forward 1, and then moved into position line and firing. So they pulled off 3, I should say, 3 orders, and to top that they actually disordered the front line of the Austrians as well. So the Austrians get a marker, or I should say, in the in their pot. So yeah, it's all going okay at the moment. The French are starting to move forward. Maybe their numbers are going to start telling soon, but we'll see. Back soon. And top end of turn 5 now, and some firefighting going on in there. The front of the Austrian line took a battering from the artillery, and 2 battalions of French troops. They got a disorder and 2 wounds, so they're not doing too well. In the centre, the French have lost a battalion, so I'm having to put a chit in for the French. I should have put one in earlier for their disorder as well. So the French have now got 2. So it's not doing too well in the centre, but yeah, they're still heading forwards. And in the flank here, we've got a firefight going on. The French are still pounding away. The Austrians are starting to manoeuvre around on the flank as well now to try and stem the tide of the French. So yeah, that's how it looks at the end of term 5, and I'll be back to you soon. Back in the end of turn 7, there's been some firefighting going on in this area. The Austrians have pulled their artillery right back. The French centre column had to do some break tests. One unit broke and fled, the other one on this side withdrew. So it's not looking too good in the centre at all. Hopefully down this side something's going to happen. The Austrians are holding their own quite well actually. The centre unit here, I've got to do a break test for those, and an 8, which I think is pretty good. 7 or more, yeah, it's holds it ground, so they're okay. And yeah, turns out it's not looking too good for the French, I must admit. Well, let's see how it turns out. I'll come back again in a bit. Turning back on the end of turn 8, and the large Austrian battalion failed a break test, had to withdraw, but it was soon filled the gap with another Austrian battalion. The French are now trying to move around the flanks to try and make their numbers tell. In the centre, some awesome dice rolling by the French, I must admit, has disordered one of the Austrians, and I'm going to have to take a break test with those. And all along the line the Austrians are starting to take casualties over this side, because they also lost one of their artillery batteries here from the counter battery. The French also took a casualty, some damage as well. Down this side, the battalion, the large battalion, bane of the French light infantry, took another break test and passed yet again, but the Austrian battalion that was there didn't, and routed off the table. So yeah, the pot starting to fill up this time, I must admit. There's quite a lot of damage on all sides. So yeah, end of turn 8, things are starting to happen. We'll see what happens. I'll come back in another end of turn. Back in the end of turn 9, and if we start over this side, the Austrians are starting to withdraw now. The French lost one of their light battalions, and but they've got 4 battalions still with no damage. So I think the Austrians are going to start buckling there. Over in the centre, the Austrians had to take a break test and were forced back. This battalion also had to take a break test, but they passed. They're fine, holding their line. On this flank, fighting pretty much hand to hand, but pretty much nothing happened. But the French cavalry have noticed the gaping hole in the Austrian line, so they're going to try and see if they can punch their way through. But the Austrians have already seen that manoeuvre as well, and they're starting to move forward. So imagine the cavalry going to meet somewhere in here and draw swords. So yeah, at the end of turn 9, things are hotting up nicely. It's fighting pretty much all the way along the line. Yeah, it's quite deadly, this one, I must admit. Casualties pretty heavy all round. But see how we go at the end of turn 10. And here we are at the top end of turn 10, and there's been some pretty heavy fighting over here. The Austrians, I think, are just about done in that quarter. They're fighting withdrawal. This side, they're starting to buckle as well, although the French took some casualties. Over here, the cavalry action, the Austrians lost, took their test, but passed, so they're carrying on fighting. And over this side here, they're still fighting on hand to hand. pretty much stalemate there in that corner. Yep, the start of turn 11, so there's only 2 turns left, so we'll see how we go. There's also loss of light as well, so hopefully I won't lose the light completely, but hopefully it'll last before the end of the game, so we can at least see the end of the game. Back in a bit. And here we are, the end of top of turn 10, and so I'm just going to try to see if I can increase the light a little bit better. There you go. And we have pretty much the fighting continues along that line. I don't know what's going on there. Just seems to be blow for blow either side. It's not going to give in. The cavalry battle still going on on that section as well, and along the front line, still hard fighting going along the wall as well. The French just can't break through, and the only success for the French is over in this quarter here, which is where the Austrians lost another battalion, broke and fled, and the last remaining battalion has withdrawn completely, so the flank is now open. But the French have only got 1 turn of movement left and shooting, so it's all going to come down to dice rolls, I think, in the end. So we'll see what happens, and I'll come back to you at the end of turn 12. And here we are at the end of the game, turn 12. And as you can see, there's been some serious fighting all the way along the line. If we start over here, the Austrian 1st Brigade finally broke and fled, leaving the French holding the cornfield in that section. The centre, the French started pushing into the village, but it's still being held by the Austrians, and so it's going to be deemed as a Austrian victory. The flank over here, again, the Austrians have started to withdraw, and so fortunately for the French, it's all been a little bit too late, and so we've had 12 turns, so that's made it till 9 o'clock in the evening on the time scale. So there's been no breakthrough on this flank, so there's going to be no influence from either side, the French or the Austrians, in game 2 of the series. So the second game is going to be the Austrians holding the town of Hannover and the French trying to take it from them. So I hope you've enjoyed this battle report, and any questions or queries, leave them in the comments and I'll get back to you. It leaves me to say thanks very much for taking the time out to watch my video, and as always, bye for now.